Hi there, and welcome to Sort, our first S in our 5S cycle. In this lecture, I will show you how we can statistically analyze sort. Where we last left off, it's been known it's best to start off with an item list of what's used and what's not used. From this, we can start populating our items. So in our warehouse, we have some bolts, we have some pens, we have some markers, and we have some paint. We've used 5 bolts, 6 pens, 2 markers, and 1 bucket of paint. What hasn't been used? 2 bolts, we've used all of our pens, 1 marker, and 3 have not been used. I like to normally add in a list just describing the reasons. So in this case, we've got wrong sizes for the first 2 bolts. Our pens are fine. For our markers, we probably had a paint marker and decided to buy the bucket of paint. And without paint, in this case, we have the wrong color, hence why we didn't use it. After this, I like to calculate a percentage. This can be calculated by saying equals to our not used over our used as a percentage. Once hitting enter, this should populate the answer. We can now drag it down to populate the rest of the list. From this stage, now that we've got all of our data for our warehouse with the bolts, pens, and markers, we can select the used, not used in the item lists, insert, select bar chart, and we can rename this chart title to used and not used. Used and not used. This would be our first step in order to statistically analyze how well we have sorted. As we can see, we're trying to make sure that our used items are much higher than our not used items. This is represented in blue being used and orange being not used. I show you now how we can iterate on our used list in order to get a better result. So let me cut and copy and paste the list that we've made there above with our items. Now we can iterate this into daily to weekly used items and weekly to monthly used items. From here we can notice that we used 2 bolts weekly. Maybe we use 5 of the pens daily to weekly. Maybe we use 1 marker daily to weekly. And maybe we use all 3 paints daily to weekly. From weekly to monthly, we notice that we use 3 bolts, 1 pen, and 1 marker. But without paint, we only use that on a daily to weekly basis. After that, I like to write down the reasons why some have been used monthly rather than daily. So in this case, we can say they different bolts, so different sizes. Maybe the pen that we use monthly would be a red pen for when we're trying to sign something off. And maybe the markers that we use monthly instead of daily would be because it's a permanent marker. We notice that we use our paint here on a weekly and daily basis rather than a weekly to monthly basis, so this one doesn't need a reason. After this, I have to calculate the percentage. This, as discussed before, is equivalent to our monthly use over our weekly use as a percentage. Once copy this all down, it should populate all of our answers. And by selecting our daily to weekly, weekly to monthly items, we can now insert another bar chart. Ideally, we rename this to daily and monthly. Okay, looking at our data, ideally we want things to be used between the daily and weekly areas represented in blue, and the weekly to monthly we want it obviously less than the blue. So over here we've got good results with the paint, with the pens. Our markers we use weekly to daily and weekly to monthly, and our bolts over here we tend to use more monthly than on daily use. This can now be called week 1. With our data, we would copy this onto week 2, as I shall show you. So this would be our week 2's results. We'd have our week 3's results and week 4's results. I shall populate this and then explain to you what we do. So that becomes week 3. And this becomes week 4. Okay, now that we have our 4 weeks, we can now calculate a calculation sheet. So this one over here, I'll call our calculation sheet. In the next part, I'll show you how we calculate all these values. But for now, I'll randomly adjust all of our week values for week 1's. Week 2's, we will type in some random values. This is just to show you how we calculate the calculations. Week 3, we'll type in some more random values. Week 2, we type in more random values. And now we can calculate our calculation. What I'd like to do is, I like to copy our first week's template. Copy it, and then drag it into our calculation sheet. From this, we would have to use an Excel equation. I shall demonstrate this. For our used items, we type in the equation equals the sum of, we're going to go back through all of our sheets, so starting with week 1 and keeping on control, used item number 1, go to week 4, used item number 2, it should actually be week 1, then we hit comma, select week 3's, keeping on control, hit comma, go to the next week, and we can hit enter. This now, as you can see in the top formula bar, we have now selected week 1, 2, 3 and 4, everyone's used. We can drag this down and it should populate the rest of our used list. The same now would also apply with our not used. By dragging to the right, we should be able to calculate all of our not used. From there we can drag it down and populate the rest of our not used. Now we have calculated our monthly totals for how much we can save and what we can do statistically with our sort. So let me demonstrate this. As usual, we can insert a bar chart to represent our data of used and not used. So we call this monthly used and not used. With this thing as well, we can select all of our items and select all of our percentages and insert a pie chart for this. From there, I like to add in the data labels as a percentage. So now select the data labels as a percentage. And from this, we can look at our not used items and our items. We can go insert, and there's something called a histogram if we get that option. All charts, select the histogram function and select the Pareto function out of this. So this will be our Pareto analysis of our month. Okay, let me briefly just describe what we've calculated and how we can statistically sort and analyze what we have seen and done. In our top one with our monthly used and not used, we can see that we're definitely using the bolts and pens more than we've used our markers and our paints. This obviously means that there's a lot to save in our markers and our paints. This is over the 4-week span. Then we moved on to calculate its percentage as represented here in this pie chart. You can see 9% can be saved by bolts, 58% can be saved on our paint, 32% can be saved on our markers, and 1% can be saved on our pens. This is due to our not used criteria placed as a percentage, assuming we want to have 100% saving over our not used criteria. This is represented in our pie chart. And then in our Pareto chart, we can see where our 80% line is marked at. We notice that includes the paint and the markers, and as we all know, if we solve these two problems, that should increase everything by about 80%. So looking at our paint and our markers represent 32% over here, but our markers is top of our list when it comes to our Pareto analysis. So now comes the question, what's best to do? If we're trying to save money, we'll assume that we'd hop over here on our percentage and save money via the paint. If we're trying to save time, we'd be looking at our Pareto analysis, because this tends to be more of a problem and this tends to be more of a fixed solution. I hope you enjoyed looking how we can statistically analyze how well we sort, and I'll give a quick overview on what we have done just so that you understand. Looking at week 1, we started with an item list, used, not used, and the reasons for why it's not been used, then calculated a percentage. This can be graphically represented in a bar chart as seen over here, where we're trying to aim to have the blues higher than the orange, or in this case the used higher than the not used. We can then iterate our used to see what we're using on a daily to weekly basis, and then a weekly to monthly basis. Ideally, we want our daily to weekly use more than our weekly to monthly use, and this can also graphically be represented inside a bar chart. You'd continue with this, doing week 2, week 3, week 4, and that would be the full month of data. Now we can calculate how much we can actually save over the whole company. So, following the same idea, item, used, not used, reasons, and percentage, we can populate a bar chart to show how much we've used and how much we've not used. We can calculate a pie chart to see how much we can actually save on our not used items, and then we can Pareto analysis to see how much time we can save due to the amounts of problems that are happening. Hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you stay tuned for the second S, set, and how we can set statistically.